Coming up, I'm going to be talking about Venom The Last Dance, also talking about the whole situation with Comcast, Hulu and Disney, plus also the Kardashians being very, very popular. But before we go any further, make sure you do hit that subscribe button to keep up with the latest Disney Plus news. Hi, it's Roger here from What's On at DisneyPlus.com. It's time for a quick Disney Plus news roundup. Let's start off with talking about some major news regarding Hulu and the current situation between Disney and Comcast. So, over the last few years, we've been waiting on their deal to finally come to a close. This was agreed back in 2019 when Disney acquired 20th Century Studios. They put in a deal with Comcast that in 2024 they could put forward a deal where Disney could buy out Comcast's stake. Now at the time they put a valuation of $27.5 billion on that one, but a final valuation would have to be put together by two individual parties. They would then come together to see if they were close enough. If they were, they would have a deal. If not, a third party would be brought in to kind of do a referee and kind of come up with a final solution. Now that company that's actually been brought in is RBC Capital, because as you'd imagine, both companies couldn't come to an agreement. Comcast Bank, they decided that they thought that Hulu was worth about $40 billion, and while Disney said that it was worth $27.5 billion, basically the minimum amount. Not a huge surprise to see that both companies went with the idea of what they wanted to pay. Obviously Disney doesn't want to pay any more, and Comcast wants as much as it possibly can. It just makes sense to do that. You can't blame either of them for that one, and they've both got to look after their shareholders and all the rest of it. So, no fault really on that point of view. But according to the Wall Street Journal, this could end up going to court because they're at a stalemate and they can't seem to move forward. Now, Disney has already paid Comcast over $8 billion to buy out the stake that it's got in, but it still owes that little bit more depending on what the valuation is. Now, if it was viewed at like Disney's level at $27.5 billion, then Comcast wouldn't get any more money. In fact, they might actually have to give a little bit back, because it depends if their ownership level has dipped because they stopped investing in the platform. There was something in their contract that kind of came into it. But if it gets viewed higher, obviously Disney will have to pay a little bit more money, which they don't want to do. And until that happens, I think, in all honesty, we're not really going to see the full merger of Disney Plus and Hulu until this entire thing has been sorted out, and why we're not really seeing advertisements really too much about Hulu and Disney Plus. They're still technically separate because Comcast still technically owns a little bit of it, and it's not all completely finalized. Now, Comcast has had other issues with Disney over Hulu. They felt like, they were promised an international rollout. That never happened. Disney instead decided to put Star onto Disney Plus around the world, and they were annoyed at that, unsurprisingly. But let's be honest, it doesn't make a lot of rocket science to realise that was what was going to happen. Comcast just likes launching new streaming services, so they can't seem to decide what they're doing. But nevertheless, obviously this is a Disney Plus channel, so we side with Disney Plus generally. But I can see why Comcast would be a little bit annoyed, but at the same time, it's like, you've got hitched your wagon to this. You only owe a third of this. Therefore, you don't have to say. If you don't like what they're doing, sell up. That's kind of ultimately it. If they wanted to have full control over Hulu, they needed to have a little bit more ownership or be involved in it and not give... it's kind of one of those things. If they're still an active partner, but they didn't have the rights, they didn't have the voting power, they'll have to just keep going along with it. So whoever knows, it could end up going to court. Now, this could end up, as I said, putting a delay on when the purchase of Hulu can be completely finalised. And ultimately, I do believe we're going to end up seeing Hulu merged into Disney Plus around the world. This also is probably going to have an impact on when they might rebrand the Star Hub to Hulu. I think that's something that will happen. But again, until this is done, nothing can happen. Now, Disney kind of keep downplaying it because obviously they don't want to give any hand to what they're going to be doing to Comcast. But I think we're going to see where this is going. But hopefully they can kind of come to some agreement. I mean, if they go to court, it's going to cost them more money. And it could go either way. So either company has got, Disney could put forward and put it in for going for law. But obviously this could go either way. Disney could put it in and they're going to have to end up being forced to pay more. But it could go the other way. They could be made to pay less. Same thing for Comcast. Comcast could be saying, we want $40 billion, and so therefore we want a third of that. And yeah, the lawsuit could be like, no, the original agreement was fine, and that's all you're getting. There's a very fine line. I mean, I do think the valuation of Hulu at $40 billion does seem very high, considering, while it does have a lot of users, if Disney took away all of its content, there's a lot left. And I think that's the thing of is Disney's content being included in that valuation? Who knows? Comcast obviously just want more, but nevertheless, things are not moving as well as we'd like. But this is to be expected. I didn't expect it was going to be a fast thing, especially with Comcast and Disney. They just generally just don't like each other. But nevertheless, let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. Moving on from there, let's now talk about The Kardashians, which recently debuted with its 5th season, and it's been a huge hit for Disney. So this show has been released on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus in the United States, on Disney Plus around the world, and it has already broken some records, because in the first 4 days, it was watched by 3.9 million times, and making it the most watched unscripted series premiere this year on Disney streaming platforms. It's also the second most watched entertainment premiere of the year so far, just behind the FX series Shogun. So really the show that a lot of people are checking out The Kardashians. Obviously this is not in line with like what we might see from a major show like Percy Jackson, Marvel or Star Wars, but it does show how many people are watching it and why it's so popular for Disney Plus. I know a lot of people hate when I talk about this show and people don't understand it, but this is the reason why it keeps coming up and why they keep pushing it, because there's a lot of people that are watching it, and it also gave a boost with the premiere, people watching the previous seasons. I think maybe as people started realizing, you know, that the old ones are on there as well, because there's been 4 seasons of this. It obviously jumped over from E, where it was keeping up with the Kardashians, and it got rebranded, new show and stuff. But yeah, so there you are. If you're watching it, let me know in the comments below. I do enjoy it. I watch it with my wife. It's absolutely crazy and bonkers and doesn't make any sense, but I still do enjoy it. Shifting gears now a little bit more, let's talk about now Venom, because we got the first trailer for Venom The Last Dance, which is coming out in cinemas in October. So obviously this is a Sony film, but featuring characters from the Marvel comics. Marvel is involved with it in some ways of association, because they have to promote it, and obviously it is a Marvel character. Now this one is going to be the final movie in the trilogy, and we kind of see all chaos happening in this trailer, where he's being chased by like the armed services and being chased down, and also eating kind of a load of villains and stuff. A lot of fun, like all this stuff, pretty cool. And then suddenly then a whole host of stuff comes down from Venom's planet, and these big monsters trying to kill him. There's some great little moments in here of fun side of things, with them kind of can't quite get the words together for saying we are Venom, and there's a really crazy scene involving a horse becoming a Venom. Yeah, it just looks great. Looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I do like the idea of them not doing the typical kind of big Venom ending, like they did with the Carnage movie, but they probably teased it a little bit in there. But I think not doing Carnage versus, I think just not having all these different characters facing off and just doing something a little bit different is a good thing. Now the question is this going to be the last movie with Tom Hardy as Venom? I wouldn't be at all surprised if they introduce him in the Marvel Secret Wars movie and kind of use the multiverse as that, and then maybe reboot Venom in the MCU. And yeah, that's where I think this one could end up going, because I think Sony are going to end up making a deal with Marvel to kind of do stuff together a bit more. I think they've realised with their movies it's just not working the way they're doing it. But this one definitely looks fun. Looking forward to watching it. But let us know what you think of it. Obviously as well with this movie, because of the US pay deal, it does mean that it will be going to Disney Plus in the United States about 2 years after it gets released, because it has to go to Netflix first. But obviously internationally, it could be years until this arrives on Disney Plus. But it's still a Marvel film. I still want to talk about it. Nevertheless, let me know what you think of this in the comments below. Okay, let's now talk about what's new on Disney Plus today. It is Monday, and the big new release on Disney Plus in the United States was the National Geographic series World Eats Bread. I like bread, so I'll probably check this one out. There was also some other new Hulu content added, including Bullet Train, a really fun action-packed movie, which I really enjoyed. Definitely check that one out. There's other new, a lot of comedy got added as well. There've been loads of comedy stuff onto Hulu, so obviously that's also available on Hulu on Disney Plus. But let me know if you're going to be checking that out. Love to hear your thoughts on that. Let's now jump into the question of the day. This comes from the Norfolk Pyro, who says, what's a success in terms of money now at the box office? So over the last couple of weeks, we're really starting to see how the box office just isn't quite firing on all cylinders this year. The number of the movies are really kind of making it big. Nothing's really clicking. People aren't going the same way. And ultimately, there is a dozen reasons why not. Money, the experience at the cinema, people being trained for streaming, the quality of the films, the superhero and franchise fatigue. But in terms of like what is successful, I think we do have to look at things and go, Is this a success? Is it not? And I think you have to compare it to other movies coming out around the same time, rather than keep going back to the past and trying to think of what used to be. I still think in general, a good point in the ground is whatever the budget is, double it. That is basically the break-even point. And so if you think of it like that, that is when they start making money on it. So from that point on, I think most people, including myself, would be like, that's a good point. But you get to think, most businesses are not there just to break even. They want to make money. So that's the thing. They have to do more than that. But obviously there's merchandise, streaming, home video, licensing out, things like that. So there are other ways of making money. So it doesn't all come down to the box office, especially with, I think, like animated films, like things like Wish and Encanto. The box office is just a part of it. They are making money from it in other areas, so it's not all down to just that. But yeah, I think we're definitely seeing now just box office numbers are just generally much lower. People are not going to the cinema, and again, as I said, there's a lot of different ways of looking at this. I think ultimately we are seeing them spending less on advertising, and they're going to be spending less on the budget. That's the one way of making this better, is if you're only going to be pulling in, say, 300 to 700 million as a good movie result, because there's some that aren't even getting that high. If you can get the advertising and the budgets down, that will help towards that and mean that you don't have to make as much. I think the advertising is where we're really going to start seeing a lot less pushing of trailers, less events, less premieres, less tie-ins and stuff like that, unless they're getting paid for it. Yeah, I think those big advertising campaigns, I think sometimes of what Marvel have done with some of their movies where, they were holding seemed like having a premiere in every event and it's like, realistically, just do one in El Capitan in Hollywood and maybe do a UK one. And that's probably about it. That's probably all most of them that actually need. Most people don't really pay a lot of attention, but there's lots of advertising and promotions and stuff. And obviously you have to spend to make money, but the simple truth is, advertising doesn't reach that same audience in the same way that it used to. But yeah, I think generally though, my rule is look at the budget, double it. That is the break-even point. Anything after that would be considered a success. But we've obviously, it's very hit and miss right now. But let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. If you've got a good question for tomorrow, let me know in the comments below. If it's cool, I'll pick it out. And if you've got any comments about anything else, feel free to pop it in. I also jump in and have a look at those comments every single day. But on that note, guys, thank you very much for supporting us. Go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com, and I shall see you guys soon. Laters.